Let us start with the login library that we have in an Python. First thing that we need to do is to import the library. So to do that, we start with the keyword import, specify the library, which is login. Once you import a library, you are allowed to access the methods which are present in the library. So let us proceed and try to send some random data on the console, which we did with the print method. So to access the different methods inside the logging library, we need to start with the login function, a dot, and then we have a series of methods which are present in that library. The message could either be info, or it could either be a debug, it could either be a warning, error, or a critical. So these are series of levels which are present in the login library, and these are used to filter out a specific message. For example, the default level of a severity that we have for logging is warning. So anything equals to or above a warning will be printed on a console. What that means, let us call a warning method over here, and then we specify the message. So this is warning. So this is the message that we want to send to a console. And now if we try to execute the code, you could actually see that this is a warning and the message of a warning. But now if we just try to call the info method, and then if we just add a string as this is info, let us try to execute the code again. You could still see a warning, but info is not displayed. Now this is what we refer to as a filtering of a string. So each of a method have some specific value. Let us understand what are the different values that our method have. Login consists of 5 different levels. So it could either be a debug, which is the lowest level. In fact, about debug we have not set, but this we rarely use. Then we have a debug, info, warning, error, and then we have a critical. So these are series of level. Each level have a value. So not set have a value of 0, debug have a value of 10, info have a value of 20, warning have a value of 30. Then we have an error with a value of 40, and last one critical with a value of 50. And the default value for set for filtering is 30. Anything equals to or above 30 will be printed on a console, while rest will be filtered out. Now this level is configurable. First we'll work around with a default level, and that will try to modify the level. So when we call an info method, this basically check the level of an info. As you can see over here, info have a value of 20, and since default value is 30, info is less than default value. So whenever the method that we are calling first level is checked, now this will have a level of 20. Since it is less than default level, it won't be sent on the console, and that is the reason you won't see info on a console. But when we call warning have a level of 30, so this is equals to default level, hence this is sent on a console. Now if you just try to call any other level whose value is greater than default, let us just try to call critical. So when we call a critical over here, and if we try to execute, critical report is also sent on a console. The reason being, critical have a value of 50. Since this is greater than the default value, it will be sent on a console. But if we try to call a debug, which have a value of 10, this won't be sent on a console. So this is how we do a filtering. At the start of a simulation, we could use an info and print all of the message, including the critical message as well as the values of a variable printed with an info messages. Once we are sure that our verification environment is correctly built, we could change the level so that we only see a critical messages, filtering out all the info messages. So how we change the level? We know by default the level is set to a warning. To change the level, we simply need to call the method set level. So how we do that? Let it just call a logging. We need to get an access of a logger, and once we get an logger access, we have a method that could be used to configure our logger. Here you have a set level method, and now we'll try to change the level to, let us assume, info. So logging dot info. This is how we change the level of logger. And once we do this, let us just go ahead and try to again add all of this string below our configuration. So we add all of this over here. Warning, info, and debug. Now remember, we have changed the level to an info. Now default level will be override, and this will now have a value of 20. So anything equals to or above 20 will be printed on the console. Warning, have a value of 30. This is greater than our default level. So this will be sent on a console. Info have a value of 20. This will again be sent on the console. But debug now have a value of 10, which is less than default. So this won't be sent on the console. Now, if we try to execute the code, so as opposed to our previous case, now we also see an info string. If we change the level to debug, so you could actually see be able to get debug info and warning. So this is what we refer to as an filtering. So as per your requirement, you could decide which specific messages to be sent to a console. This is one of a scenario that we frequently require, where we try to change the level of filtering. And in our system Verilog term, we often refer it as a level of severity.